Scud. Now, if you've got a stressed out pooch, get them in front of the telly now, because there's a clip here coming up. It's going to put an end to all their traumas, isn't it, Scud? Well, I'm really chilled out. I'm very relaxed. How was it for you, Scud? Uh-huh. Now meet Scud's owner, pet behaviourist, Dr. Peter Neville, who designed a doggy video. Yes, welcome, Peter.
Thank you.
How can that video help your pet?
Well, it basically helps them relax. It's full of nice lilting themes, the sound of water lapping on the shore. It's for the modern dog who has to be left at home on his own, really.
But I always thought that dogs couldn't really make out things on the TV. They couldn't actually see it.
Oh no, there's plenty of dogs who watch the television. Some of the soaps are big favourites. Others like the moving ones, you know, the snooker and One Man and His Dog, obviously.
Right. So, what actually causes dog stress then?
It's modern living. Our lifestyles have changed so much, even in the last 30, 40 years. Nowadays, we all expect our dogs to put up with perhaps quite long periods at home when we go out. They're a pack animal. If they're left at home alone, they can get very anxious, particularly if they don't learn to cope with solitude when they're young.
How do you help them to cope with being left on their own? How do you do that?
Well, early experience is the best thing, and the video is primarily a preventative measure that you can get your young puppy used to being on his own by playing this sort of security bridge.
So you leave that on while you go out?
You leave that on while you go out. You put it on 10 minutes before you go out. and the water relaxes him and so on. But it's also used to treat older dogs who haven't got used to being on their own. And that's perhaps the second commonest problem that I get to treat in my clinics.
What else, and what other reasons would stress a dog out apart from being left alone?
Dogs are very sensitive to what goes on in the human pack, and if man and wife are having a bit of an argument or a bit of a rough patch or an emotional time for other reasons, it's very likely to impact on the dog. Remember that his survival depends upon a nice, stable, cohesive pack around him. So if there's disruption, that can be very, very disruptive on the dog. The types of pet behaviour we'll see, perhaps, are a very reactive sort of dog, very quick to bark, very quick to jump up and down, a dog that perhaps latches on to one person, perhaps identifies them as the key to security, follows them around the house.
I guess you've also got to be constant, haven't you, with them too? I mean, if they jump up one day, you let them, and another day you don't. So...
Yeah, dogs are very much here and now, and I think perhaps what I'm saying is that in the old days, we were all in good routines. We worked 9 to 5, we didn't stay out late particularly, except perhaps one night a week. Now our lives are all over the place, and the poor old dog's having quite a lot of trouble in some cases, particularly, obviously, if you've got a rather demanding or a rather emotional sort of dog, because they all vary, of course, as well.
I can't believe this dog. What a mess. He's got terrible breath, I have to say, dreadful breath.
He is smelly vision. He
really
smells
is.
himself totally.
Oh, dear. And what about new babies? How does that affect, do you think?
Yes, again, I mean, that's certainly from the dog's point of view, that's a change to the pack, and having perhaps somebody to stay, or indeed the arrival of a new baby, or sometimes
Bless you!
Sometimes a bereavement in the house can upset the dog greatly. And they need time, and they need to be introduced. Obviously, you're very careful with a new baby, but they do need time. Remember very strongly that they are a social animal, and any changes to the house need to be introduced carefully.
Well, this video's obviously worked with Scud here. Scud, obviously, after the missiles.
That's
I don't
right.
think.
It's highly devastating, but always going off in the wrong place. I'm afraid.
Yeah, tell me about this one. Well, I've got you here. My friend's dog. Yes, my friend's dog. Whenever I go around them, and when I first started, I just thought, how sweet. He gets my leg. Yeah. It's like he wants to dance. I'm not sure what it is. What do you do? I mean, how do you keep them? How do you stop them doing that?
Well, I think the most important thing with dogs is to remember that they're like us. They've actually put on here to reproduce themselves. Yeah. No, not with me, thank you. And of course, they have hormones whizzing around their systems that are saying, you know, it form relationships.
Yeah.
And of course, dogs are like us. They also do pair bond.
Right.
And so a male dog in particular will tend to look to a female to form some sort of breeding pair. Now, obviously, that's not possible in a human pack, but no one's told them that they're in a human pack. No. So they're just trying to do what nature intended them to do.
So how do you tell your dog's stressed? How do you tell?
Well, lots of things. Sometimes they become insomniac, sometimes they become just hyperactive, sometimes they just become very, very attached, pacing up and down. Sometimes that excitability when you do come home or when you are with them, can switch into what we interpret as sexual behaviour. So if you see a dog that's constantly mounting your leg, constantly mounting cushions, that in its sign is itself a sort of displacement behaviour, which indicates an underlying stress.
They never seem to go off their food, do they? I mean, I've never known a dog where you've sort of offered it food and it's gone, like it, nice, but I think I'm going to pass. They always eat, don't they?
Most of them do, and that's because, again, you know, we forget they're 80% wolf. It doesn't matter whether they look like Scud or the champion poodle at Crufts.
No.
You know, they are 80% wolf. And they're basically scavengers. They're not the big sort of compulsory predator that perhaps a cat is. The dog certainly is a scavenger. So for any food that's going, eat it.
Scooter, that has been marvellous. I'm considering the situation, and thank you very much. And this isn't, it's called for dogs in the shops now. Marvellous Christmas present for your dog.